Welcome back to microeconomics class. In this class, I'll be solving this question on non-collusive oligopoly model. So here is the question one. We're going to say, suppose there are two firms in a market. The market demand function is P equals 100 minus Q. So you can see where Q is equals to Q1 plus Q2, where this Q here is the total output in the market, where Q1 is the output of firm 1 and this Q2 is output of firm 2. And we also told that each of the firms face a constant marginal cost and average cost of $10. So if firms 2 output level is 50 units, you have to derive the residual demand function of firm 1 and P to determine the profit maximizing output unit of firm 1. So this question is very simple. Let's see. So here we have the market demand function as P, market demand function. The market demand is P equals 100 minus Q. So we can rewrite this market demand function as P equals 100 minus, since Q, don't forget Q, we are told that Q is equal to Q1 plus Q2. So in other words, we can replace this Q with Q1 plus Q2. In other, we have Q1 plus Q2 here. Then this is equal to 100 minus Q1 minus Q2. You see? Now, we are told that the firm's 2 output level is 50 units, and if that is the case, don't forget we are dealing with question 1, we can simply replace Q1 with 50 units here. In other words, we can derive the residual demand function is equals to P, that is PR, residual, is equals to 100 minus wherever we see Q2 we put that, so we have Q1 then minus 50. So in other words, we have 100 minus 50 minus Q1, which is equal to 50 minus Q1. In other words, we have residual demand as 50 minus Q1. That is residual demand function we are asked to derive. Okay. Now, the next thing we are asked to do is to determine the profit maximizing output unit of firm. So how do we determine the profit maximizing output unit of firm? Okay. Don't forget the residual demand is the difference between the quantity demanded fulfilled by a firm in the market and the total demand in the market. Okay. Now, this is residual demand, and this residual demand will be fulfilled by firm 1. Okay. In other words, this PR can be rewritten as P1. Okay. So this residual demand belongs to firm 1. So I can write it as P1 equals 50 minus Q1. Okay, as the case may be. Now, how do we determine the profit maximizing output level? It's very simple. You recall that the profit maximizing rule and the profit maximization rule. The profit maximization rule, that's the maximization rule is that MR is equal to MC. And we know our residual demand that belongs to firm 1 says that P1 equals to 50 minus Q1. So we can generate our total revenue from this residual demand function and derive our MR. So in other words, we have TR1 will be equal to P1 multiplied by Q1, which is equal to 50 minus P1, then multiply by Q1. So we have 50 times Q1, so we have 50 Q1, then minus Q1 times Q1, so we have Q1 squared. Then we can derive marginal revenue. The marginal revenue, that marginal revenue for frame 1 from residual demand function and residual revenue will be equal to, don't forget this TR1, the TR1 over the Q1. This is equal to 50 minus 2Q1. So we are done with this. Then you recall the profit margin rule. That's MR is equal to MC. MR, don't forget this MR1 is equal to MC. In other words, our MR1 is 50 minus 2Q1. What is MC? Constant MC, 10. Then you collect the like terms, you have 50 minus 10 equals to Q1. 40 equals to Q1. Okay, then you can divide both sides by the quotient of Q1. Therefore, we have 40 divided by 2 equals Q1. Then we have 20 equal to Q1. So, therefore, the demand in the market, okay, the total demand in the market, which is Q, is equal to Q1 plus Q2, which is equal to 20 plus 50, and that is 70. So you can see that while frame 1 fulfill 20 units of the quantity demanded in the market, frame 2 fulfill 50 units of the quantity demanded in the market. Thank you. Don't forget to like the video, drop your comment, and also share this video to benefit others.